Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, This Story Ain't Over. So today is February 12th, it's the start of Valentine's Day week, and I thought that it might be fun to do a little vlog where I read the highest and lowest rated romances on my TBR for February. If you want to see my full February TBR, then go check out my bindery community down below where you can subscribe and get access to that exclusive video. But just a brief overview, I have some historical romances on my TBR, some books by Black authors on my TBR, and then I have some books that have been on my long-term TBR for a while now. Now, I went through the Goodreads ratings for all the books on my February TBR, and it turned out that the highest rated book happened to be a book that wasn't even out yet, which was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So this is now out, and I have gotten a copy of it, and I am so excited to read this because Ali Hazelwood, honestly, I just love her books. I just get such a serotonin boost from them. Out of her 3 previous books, I think her most recent one, Love Theoretically, is probably my favorite. But this is her first ever paranormal romance, so I'm really excited to see what I think of this one. I've already seen a bunch of people on social media freaking out and talking about this book, so I'm really intrigued to see how this compares to her previous books, if I'm gonna like the paranormal aspect, if I'm gonna feel like it's well written. All of these are questions that I have. Now, funnily enough, the lowest rated book on my TBR turned out to be The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This has been on my TBR for over a year now, I think, maybe even 2. And all I really know about it is that it's a romance and that it's got a paranormal element to it. The main character is a witch, I believe. And some of you have even told me that this book is a bit more on like the cozy Halloween vibe. So I'm kind of excited for that because I love Halloween and I love spooky season all year round. So this is gonna be a lot of fun. So these are my 2 books that I'm gonna be reading for this vlog, the highest rated romance on my TBR and the lowest rated romance on my TBR. The rating for this one is a 4.28, which is an absolutely ridiculous rating, but I think it is because this is a new release. She's like an author that a lot of people love and people are just rating it 5 stars before it's even out. So I think that's the reason for this rating, but we'll see how it holds up. The rating for this one is a 3.5, which is fairly low. I think even some of my favorite books that are a bit contentious that people, you know, go back and forth on whether they like are still like 3.6s or 3.7s at most. So this is probably one of the lowest rated books I will be reading ever. Although this does have a low rating, I don't feel like it's gonna be that bad. It seems pretty promising, but maybe I'm just having high expectations and it's probably gonna disappoint me, so we'll see. Anyways, these are my 2 books, my highest and lowest rated books on my TBR this month. I'm gonna start with Bride just because I am so excited to read this and I don't want to wait. And I feel like if I get a proper serotonin boost from this book, then I probably won't even care if I like the Ex-Hex, so that's the plan. Okay, so I'm almost 100 pages into Bride and I am in love with this already. It's so fucking good. There's just something about this that's just so fun and like different from any other traditionally published book I've ever read. Like it feels a little bit in the realm of like the fun and whimsy of fanfiction, but it doesn't feel as like cliche or low stakes as some fanfic. So essentially the premise of this is that it's like a marriage of convenience between our main character Misery, who's a vampire, and the alpha of the wares or the werewolves. And our main character Misery was previously something called a collateral, where essentially the vampires gave one of their children to the humans and the humans gave one of their children to the vampires for I think 10 years or something as collateral to not like engage in war. And it seems like this is sort of set in a version of our world, but like there are 3 species, you know, vampires, wares, and humans, and they all know of each other and there's like politics involved and unsteady alliances and shit like that. Otherwise, it's like very similar to our world. And one thing that's fun about like the way that she's approached like vampires, werewolves, and this whole paranormal aspect is that it's more of like a scientific biology thing. So a lot of the traits that we traditionally think of for like a vampire or werewolf don't actually apply. Essentially, vampires are just like humans, but they need to drink blood to survive. They have, I think, purple blood, and then same with the werewolves. And so in that way, it's kind of interesting just seeing how this plays out, and also like the politics element to this whole situation. But I think the thing that is making me enjoy this book the most is just our main character, Misery. Like, she's so freaking funny. Her voice is just hilarious. She's always cracking jokes, and she's always cracking like these dark or like really witty jokes that I just love. Aside from that, like, I'm seeing the chemistry between our main characters. I am seeing where this could go. Our lovely love interest, his name is Lo Moreland, I think, and he's giving vibes of some fun smutty scenes later on. But yeah, aside from that, I'm just really enjoying the sort of Romeo and Juliet aspect of this, and the marriage of convenience element, and just how this book is showing so much promise. I am just sensing that it's just gonna be such a good time, and I feel like it's just the perfect mix of like fantasy, paranormal, and sort of regular romance that I love and that I wish I had gotten sooner. Like, this is the fantasy romance that I needed in my life. Like, it's semi-low stakes but has some stakes, and it's very much focused on the character relationships and more of the romance, but it does have some world building to it and some interesting aspects to it. So I'm enjoying this so much. I am so proud of our lovely Ali Hazelwood and what she's done with this book so far. Okay, so I'm a lot further into Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and I am loving this so much. I read a little bit more at the coffee shop today. I was reading after lunch, and I'm about 220 pages in. I'm on chapter 17. A lot of developments have happened in the past 100 pages, which are just steaming up the atmosphere, which I'm enjoying a lot. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone because I feel like this is a new book, so most of you probably have not read it, but I feel like the relationship is building really nicely in these past 100 pages. The characters are getting to know each other a lot better. We're getting to know a lot of the side characters. A lot of the plot is coming to life. And as I said in like my first update, I really, really love Misery as a character. She's just so fun and funny and self-deprecating, but I'm also just in love with Lo. He's just so cute and is just so adorable in the way that he cares for Misery and the way he likes her. And there's one element of like their relationship that's fairly obvious like from the start, but it's obviously going to be like a little bit of a twist later for Misery because she seems blissfully unaware of this fact. But as a reader, I think you can like obviously tell. So it's just funny seeing that play out and her just being totally like ignorant of this element to their relationship. One thing I'm also enjoying is that at the beginning of every chapter there's like this little section of text in italics which features Lo's thoughts. It's never really explicitly said, but you can tell from context clues that it's like his thoughts and like what he's feeling, and it relates to what's gonna happen in the chapter. So it's fun like seeing those little bits and like understanding how he's feeling and getting a hint of where things are gonna go. And I am sensing, based off of this next little tidbit, that they're gonna bang soon, which I'm very excited for. We're like halfway through the book, like more than halfway through the book, and they haven't, you know, done anything yet. They've done like a little bit. There's a bit of this situation where he has to put his scent on her, so it was like for her protection, that kind of thing, but that's like the only place where they've been intimate. I will say overall though, the book is like a little bit less dark than I was expecting. It's a lot more happy-go-lucky, I would say, and a lot more lighthearted, I would say. Although it's a paranormal book and technically like a fantasy, it doesn't really feel like it's that heavy, I would say. Like a lot of fantasy books I go into, it's a lot of world building and context and just stuff you need to know, and it's all very, very serious. But I think the element of Misery Misery's humor just adds some lightness to the book that makes it really fun and enjoyable. So it feels like just a regular romance novel rather than like a fantasy book. So I'm enjoying it a lot, and I cannot wait to see how the next 200 pages go. Okay, so it's a new day and I have gotten a little bit further into Bride. I am 270 pages in and I've just gotten past a lot of the initial spicy scenes. Like, there's a lot of buildup in this book, which I wasn't really expecting. Like, we're almost 300 pages into the book and they haven't fully banged yet, which has me like, I just want it to happen. But I'm also loving all of the buildup and the way the chemistry is flowing between these characters. I also don't know if I mentioned this before, but I really love Anna's character, which is our male love interest's younger sister. She's such a cute character and I just love seeing her and Misery bond. It's just so adorable. At this point in the book, we're definitely gearing up for like the climax. Things are getting a little bit more tense, a little bit more fraught. There's more political things going on in the story and our main characters are kind of getting ready for that. But I'm honestly just curious to see what's gonna happen at the end, like how a lot of this is gonna get resolved or if it gets resolved. I also don't know if this is a standalone. I think it is. I'm assuming it is, but maybe not. So I'm also curious to see how the romance is gonna net out and how they're gonna stay together, because it's obviously a really complicated situation. So I'm curious to see how that's gonna get solved as well. Now, while I've been reading Bride, while I was doing my makeup today, I decided to start the audiobook for the Ex-Hex, and I'm actually really liking where this is starting. It's interesting and a bit weird, and I like the voice of the narrator. I've only read like 2 chapters, but essentially the prologue sets us up with our main character, I think Vivian. She is basically just broken up with her boyfriend of 3 months and she's really upset about the whole situation. It turns out that he was like engaged to someone else or betrothed, and she's just super upset. She's crying about it. And her cousin or roommate or whatever tells her that, you know, let's just like hex this guy. He totally deserves it. And Vivian is totally drunk at this point, so she's primed to make some bad decisions. So the two of them start saying some witchy mumbo jumbo and end up cursing her ex, who is Reese. Now, the world of this story, our main character is a witch, and so is the male love interest. They're both witches in this like society. Vivian didn't really grow up with her witchiness. She sort of learned it afterwards, after her mother had passed, I believe, and sort of learned a lot of it from her cousin and her family. And Reese happens to be a bit of a like witch royalty, it seems like he's one of the original families or some shit like that. Now, after this whole prologue of her cursing him, we jump 9 years into the future, which I did not expect at all. And we're following Reese, and he's returning home and has some business to deal with his father. I'm really curious to see where this is gonna go. I love this setup already. I love that it just jumps right into it with the witchiness, and it's sort of set at like the end of September, early October, it seems like. So it seems like it would have been a perfect read for like spooky season, but I'm also just loving the spooky season like vibes in this book during this time of year, because yeah, spooky season is like my favorite time of year aside from the summer. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I'm curious to see what I think of it, and like based off of this initial impression, I'm surprised that it was rated kind of low, but who knows? Like, it seems like a good setup, but maybe I'll just feel like kind of mediocre about it, but I feel like it's a bit promising. Like, I'm excited. One thing I did want to say also about Bride, now that I'm thinking about it and just thinking of Ex-Hex, although I'm loving like the tension and everything that's happening, I do feel like this book is like slightly too long. I feel like I just want things to move a little quicker, and it's a little surprising to me to read an Ali Hazelwood book and not want to devour it in like a single day. I don't know if it's the mood I'm in right now, like I haven't been feeling well and my health has been an issue recently and I've just been a little bit down recently. However, I feel like when I do pick up an Ali Hazelwood book, I usually like instantly devour it. Whereas this book, I feel like I've been taking in chunks because things aren't moving as quickly as they typically would, I guess, with her previous books. And those were just only romances, so I guess there was less world building to do, which is why this is taking a little bit longer and it's got a little bit more plot to it. But who knows? Okay, it's a little bit later and I am about 120 pages into the Ex-Hex. I'm enjoying this. The audiobook is really good for this one and it's really fast paced for the most part. I feel like I just blew through those 100 pages like super quickly. Basically, the story has gone a little bit further and the hex that Vivian and her cousin put on Reese sort of gets out of hand and starts to corrupt things in the town. And so they're all working together to figure out a way to stop it. I feel like the romance isn't so compelling, but it is interesting, and I think it's a little bit on the funnier side. Like, both of them are thinking about how things ended, but they were also super young when they first were together. They were only together for like 3 months when they were 19. So there's an element of them being like sort of teenagers back then, and now they're in their late 20s and thinking back on that time, thinking back on like the great sex that they had and all these passionate moments, but it's still like a different dynamic, and they're starting to get to know each other as they are now. I'm starting to see why this was rated pretty low. I think it's just generally that it's a fun read, but it's not like the best read. Even 120 pages in, I know this is not going to be my favorite thing ever. However, it's very lighthearted, it's fun, and it's enjoyable. I feel like it serves the purpose that it set out to achieve, so I'm totally okay with that. I think I'm going to continue reading a little bit more of this and then jump back into Bride, but I'll update you once I'm closer to the end of both of these. Hello my loves, it's a lot later, so I just spent the last few hours cleaning up my apartment, meal prepping for the week, all while listening to the rest of the audiobook for the X-Hex, and I have finished the book. It was honestly just like the fastest read ever, and it was honestly just super cute by the end. I don't have strong feelings about this, to be honest, and I see why it got like a 3.5 average rating on Goodreads, because it's just that. It's like a 3.5 stars for me. It was fun, it was cute, it had some really nice, smutty, sexy scenes, and it also just had like a heartwarming aspect to it by the end. But by no means did this make me think very hard, neither did it draw any sort of ugly emotions from me either. I feel like if I had read this during spooky season, it would have been like a total vibe though, because it's set during like October before Halloween. It has that witchy element, it's got ghosts in it, and I feel like you could just make a really cute spooky season moment out of this book. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about this book. I feel like it was just one of those like one and done books that I'm probably gonna forget in like 6 months from now. I will say one thing that annoyed me about the audiobook though is that the male love interest is British, or he's from Wales, so he should have an accent in the audiobook, but in the audiobook he doesn't. Like, the narrator just doesn't bother to give him an accent. So the narrator just narrates his voice as if he's an American, and that was just like a little bit of a weird thing, but it didn't really like deter me from the whole book as a whole. I do feel like though that it would have been a little bit more enticing and sexy if the British accent had actually been there. The way I can describe this is that it's one of those like Netflix rom-coms that kind of comes out of nowhere, and you watch it, you have a great time, and then you forget about it like months. That was my laundry. It feels like a Netflix movie that you just watch, totally forget about, enjoy at the time, but yeah, don't remember 6 months later. It leaves you with some fuzzy feelings and gives you a cozy time, totally distracts you from all of your problems, and it's just a nice vibe. I'm honestly just so surprised that I didn't hate the book, so that's a win. Now with that said, I still have this much left of Bride, and I think I'm just gonna hunker down and finish it. I was thinking about going to a coffee shop, but I'm not feeling well again, so we're gonna stay home and read. Okay, so I've reached an interesting point in the book, which I don't know what to make of because it's just weird. Essentially, it seems like there is more to this whole vampire werewolf thing than I was expecting, and it seems to be interfering with the sex scenes in a way that I did not expect. And I'm not sure whether I like it or not, so stay tuned, because this is weird. I feel like Ali Hazelwood took the werewolf and vampire thing and just ran with it, like went full steam ahead, and did not stop. And now here I am, contemplating the anatomy of werewolves. What an asshole! We have reached a part of the book where I am just losing my mind. Just losing my mind. I have, I think, 60 pages left. This is utter pain. Hello, my loves. It is a new day. It is a new night. I did not get the chance to finish Bride last night, but I got home from work just now and decided to plow through, pun intended, the last few chapters of Bride, and I have finished it, and oh my god, guys. This was so good. From the way that the plot comes together by the end, to the way that the steamy scenes come together, to the way that everything resolves, everything was just so fantastic and so well done, and I'm honestly so impressed with Miss Ali Hazelwood. She did such a great job with this. I feel like this was the perfect blend of both like paranormal, fantasy elements and also romance, steamy romance. I will say though that if you are going into this looking for only romance, you will be disappointed, because although there's like a lot of romantic bits and there's, you know, a few steamy scenes, I wouldn't say that it's like the full focus. There is a lot of time devoted to the world building and the other aspects of the story, and also the mystery of like Serena and what happened to her and all of the like backstory. I do feel like there was one point where it was like the, you know, third act of the book, and I was like, oh my god, where is this going and why aren't there more sex scenes, because they were fantastic. But I think it kind of made sense that like things sort of run their course through the plot part of the story, and then we get to more of these steamy scenes at the end. But overall, it was freaking fantastic. There's some crazy werewolf vampire sex. This was like the perfect mix of like mystery and intrigue and hilarity and sexiness and just overall fun. As I said at the beginning of this vlog, I love Misery as a character. She was just so fun and just so endearing, and I really grew to love Lo as well. He does do some stupid things, but I really did love him by the end. And I think all the other characters were just so fun and cute, and I really particularly liked one side character who sort of showed his true colors by the end in a good way, which I loved. I'm trying not to spoil things for you guys, but it was someone who like you don't have much faith in at the beginning, and then you get some more faith in them by the end. So that was nice. And what I will also say is that I really loved the way that the mystery came together with Serena and her whole existence, because throughout the beginning of the book you're sort of questioning why Misery is so, you know, intent on finding Serena and what hold she has on her. And we do explore that backstory, but we also have this element of like just trying to figure out what Serena was up to. And the resolution that we come to by the end was just so satisfying. I feel like it really brought the whole story together and just made it super interesting. And overall, it was just so well done and satisfying. Now, my final thought on this, and that relates to the final epilogue of this book, it left some open questions at that very last chapter, and it makes me wonder if there's going to be a sequel to this. It seems like a standalone, but I could imagine there being like a spin-off or like another book in this universe, like a companion novel. So I'm curious to see whether that's going to be a thing, because there's a couple characters in this book that have a potential to have a romance in the future, and I'm curious to see if that's gonna be a thing. Like, I'd read that, I'd be down. Anyways, that's my thoughts on Bride by Ali Hazelwood and The XX by Erin Sterling. Overall, I feel like this was a very successful vlog and a really great way to just tap into a couple different paranormal fantasy romances. It gave me some spooky vibes during the winter, and just overall it was a fun romantic time. Even though the XX was like only a 3 or 3.5 stars for me, it was still enjoyable, and I like feel like it was just a fun, quick read. And I think the way that I dragged Bride across like a week and a half or something in the time that I filmed this vlog also made for a fun experience, and I feel like I got to really spend some time with it and really get into the story. So yeah, overall successful vlog and reading journey. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought of the XX or Bride. If you've read them, let me know if you plan to pick them up after hearing my thoughts. And let me know if there are any books that you would recommend to me based off of these two that you think I would enjoy. I would love to hear all of your recs. As always, if you haven't already, go check out my Instagram, Goodreads, TikTok, and Bindery community down below, where you can get exclusive content from me, from monthly TBRs to journal entries to Zoom hangouts. And as always, I will see you in my next video, and please remember that the story ain't over. Bye!